Profiles of Courage, celebrating the Morehouse legacy of civil and human rights.
We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only.
The battle for civil rights in the South was hard fought by brilliant leaders who made back-breaking sacrifices in the name of equality. Leaders who understood that the stage was set and the time was now. Some would hail from Atlanta's Morehouse College, encouraged and inspired by the early years of the historic presidency of Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. Former Georgia Senator Leroy Johnson remembers the Tuesday talks.
His subject was the evil of segregation. And he said that Morehouse men must never pay for segregation.
Reaffirming messages of hope, telling the men, you have the ability, now apply yourself. Words that would give birth to a fearless, determined generation, one that would reshape Atlanta's history, the Atlanta student movement. Inspired by the Greensboro, North Carolina student sit-ins, Lonnie King recalls a conversation with Julian Bond in 1960.
Don't you think we ought to do something about it here? He said, well, somebody probably will. I said, let us make something happen, Julian.
Spearheaded by King, the newly formed Committee on the Appeal for Human Rights set up strategy meetings. Not long after the North Carolina sit-in, Georgia's legislature passed a law making it a misdemeanor to refuse to leave a place of business when ordered by management. Unmoved, King met with college presidents along with student leaders from each of the 6 historically black colleges and universities. It was suggested that grievances be listed formally.
I then appointed Rosalind Pope, who was the president of Spelman's SGA, who was a brilliant English major. I said, write the appeal for us.
The document addressed education, the lack of hospitals and police, and rules that force black patrons of the Fox Theater to pay at the front, walk around to the back, to climb 50 steps to the balcony.
My thinking was that human rights supersede civil rights, and that the reason we had to have civil rights was because we were not considered human. And so the idea was that as people, as human beings, we were deprived of things that other people had access to. And so it was more about our humanity than about whether or not we could get a hot dog.
The document was run as a full-page ad in area newspapers and nationally in the New York Times. Many students throughout the Atlanta University Center would galvanize into action. Multiple demonstrations would follow. They were deliberate and relentless, including one at Rich's department store.
We felt that if we break the Rich's department store, the rest of the town merchants will fall, like dominoes.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Understanding his significance to the struggle and desiring his leadership, fellow Morehouse man Dr. Martin Luther King was called upon to take part. He, along with the group, would be arrested. But in 1961, Rich's, along with many other department stores and restaurants, ended the formal practice of segregation through a formal signed agreement. Another battle won in the war for civil rights. Leaders attributing their success to Dr. Benjamin Mays and the education that only Morehouse College could provide.
I can't describe to you what it was like adequately to be in the presence of Benjamin E. Mays.
Dr. Mays was providing the rhetorical and philosophical and the inspirational basis for who I became.
I'm always going to be grateful for what the Morehouse experience gave me.
I did not come here to practice my profession. I feel that I was summoned here. Being here was a calling.
Morehouse just isn't an ordinary school. Morehouse is an extraordinary school.